Hi, in this tutorial I'll show you how to make a gently sloping beach in Bloxburg, so you can walk in and out of the water, no need to jump. You can make a floor on the bottom of the pool by putting cubes on it, and then you can put plants and rocks and anything you want on the cube floor. But of course you can't place cubes directly on the bottom of the pool, so I'll show you two ways to get them there. The basement method and the plank method. The basement method's easier, but the plank method's good if you've already placed your pool and don't want to waste money deleting it and starting again. This is another beach I made a couple of years ago before structurals and basic shapes, so that's the method I used here. The plank method can also be used to fix mistakes if you accidentally delete your cube floor, so I'll quickly show you the plank method before I start making the beach. Here I've got a deep pool, classic pool and shallow pool. Use a horizontal plank and toggle it to custom placement. Put the placement grid on medium. This makes it easier to place the plank. Then place the planks a little distance apart. This is just to save money. You could place them next to each other, but then you'd need a lot more planks. Next, resize a cube with the scale tool to whatever height and width you want, and then place it on the planks. So that's the floor in the deep pool. Then do the same with the classic pool and shallow pool. Just copy the cube. At the moment you can still see the planks, but they'll be hidden when you make slopes with the wedges. But building underwater isn't very easy, so if you haven't already placed your pool, the basement method's best. So now I'm starting a brand new beach with the basement. Mark out the shape of your water with something like plane marking. I'm making a pretty random shape. I found out the basement way of making the pool floor by watching some of Rampee's videos. Most recently this one where he shows how to make a beautiful pond. He's absolutely my favourite YouTuber. His videos are really entertaining and full of useful information. Okay, that's the outline for the water. Instead of plane marking you can use floor. I'm using floor to make the sand for my beach anyway, so I don't actually need the plane marking. The colour I use for sand is brick yellow and the texture is sand. Sometimes I use concrete. So I'm copying that floor and now I'm making a smooth, natural shape for the water line. Next, place a basement where the pool's going to be and make sure to have at least one grid square of spare basement on one side for deleting it later. I've got a huge spare bit there because of the shape of my water. To make the slope of the beach you need a cube and a horizontal wedge. Make them as wide as they'll go and as long as they'll go. Make 3 of each. For the shallow end, or the shallow pool, resize the cube up by $104, which is 9.95. It's good to go by the size in case the prices change, but currently you can only see the size if you're on a computer. If you're on mobile, note that strangely some prices cover 2 sizes. For example, there are two $104, 9.9 and 9.95. For this cube I'm using the second one, 9.95. For the next section of the slope for the classic pool, resize the cube up by $41, the second one, which is 5.45. For the last section, which is for the deep pool, resize the cube up by $1, the first one, and the size is 2.55. Now for the wedges. For the shallow part, resize the wedge down by $4, that's 2.1, and put it on its cube so you don't forget which one it is. For the medium part, resize it up by $20, which is 4.5. And for the deep part, resize it up by $4, which is 2.9. Now you can place them in the basement, starting with the shallow end. It's easier to place using the medium grid size. Line them up along the straight part and rotate them for the curved parts. And just kind of squeeze them into each other. If there are gaps, it's okay because you can hide the gaps later with rocks and plants. Okay, that's plenty of beach. Now for the next level, use the medium cube and wedge set, which is for the classic pool. Line them up at the edge of the first ones. Also rotate these as needed. This one won't fit in the space, but there are a couple of ways to make it fit. The way that doesn't cost anything is to use Ctrl-Z or Command-Z. Remove the cube that's in the way, put the other one in the position you want, but don't click it into place. Just hold it there, and then press Ctrl and Z to make the first one go back, and then you can click the one you're holding to place it. If you're on mobile or tablet, click the back button instead of Ctrl-Z. You can also resize things that are in the way. Take the wedge off the first cube, shrink the cube, Place the second cube, then resize the first cube back, and then put the wedge back on. Now for the final part, which is the deep pull. Do the same as for the other layers. Okay, that's enough sloping bits. The rest of the seafloor can be flat. So clone just the cube from the deep pull set and not the wedge. Then start placing it until you've covered all the floor of the part that's going to be water. Okay, that's it. If you don't want to use deep pull, which is really expensive, you can just use medium cube to fill up the rest of the space after starting the slope. It's the right height for the classic pool, which is a lot cheaper. Or you could even use the shallow pool if you want to. If you're using the plank floor, the cube and the wedge heights I've used here won't work because you're not placing things in the basement. You can use any cube or wedge heights that suit you, but here's a quick example slope. I'm not changing the height of the cubes, just making them wider and longer. Place the cubes on the planks, resize the wedges as long and wide as they'll go. For the shallow pool, resize it down by $11, that's 1.4. For the classic pool, resize it up by $20, that's 4.5. And for the deep pool, resize it up by $5, the size is 3. Place the wedges on the cubes. There you go. This is a gentle slope at the top and then it drops more steeply than the other one. Now back to the beach. And I want to cover all the gaps and angles in the wedges with some landscaping. So I've got a selection of garden items. Some of them I'm colouring brick yellow to match the sand. Stepping stones and rocks I use a lot of, but stepping stones are expensive, so dirt piles are also a good substitute. Rocks don't really sit properly on the wedges, so you can resize the wedges to squeeze them in, or you could use Ctrl-Z. Place a few plants around. I'm putting a bit of cube here to give some height to the rocks. I'm using a wall to cover up the gaps here rather than landscaping the whole thing. It's a bit lazy, but I can change it to rocks and plants later if I ever decide to use the beach. When you feel that you've done enough decorating on the sea floor, you can delete the basement and start placing the pools. You need to be able to touch the basement floor to delete it, which is why we left some uncovered basement over at the side. Bye bye rocks. Okay, we'll start with shallow pool because it's the cheapest, and keep placing it until you can see the pool floor. Yep, there's the pool floor, so I'll undo that and change to classic pool for a bit. And then deep pool. And now I've run out of money, so I'll go and earn some more and I'll be back. Okay, now I'm rich, but this deep pool is really expensive, so I'm going to make the bay a bit smaller by leaving some bits as land. Otherwise I'll run out of money again really quickly. I'm keeping this river though. Alright, that's the water done. Now I'll decorate the above ground area. I'm not going to spend a lot of time or money on this part because this tutorial is really about making the slope of the beach and the underwater part. So I'm just going to do some really simple landscaping, nothing too detailed. I'm using the flared mansard roof to make some cliff and changing the material to slate. I've made some more of that and put rocks around it and it looks really ugly. But if I actually decide to use this beach, I'll delete it and make a better cliff from rocks. Now I've made a sand dune out of the same roof and I'm putting some different coloured grasses around. More sand dunes. They'll look better when they've got more stuff on them. I used dirt piles to soften the edges of the sand floor. Now for some trees. I'm colouring the palm fronds moss and the tree trunk cloudy grey. Adding a few more different kinds of trees. A bit of beach furniture. If you've got some snowmobiles from wintertime, you can use them as jet skis. Okay, let's have a look out of build mode. Those cliffs are so ugly. You can drive any kind of vehicle underwater on the basic shapes. If you want to ride the jet ski on the water, you can put some cubes just under the surface of the water. Then put some rocks around the edge so people don't accidentally drive off it. I got this idea from Floaty's tropical getaway build. So the value of this plot is about $875,000, but a lot of that cost is the pools. So if you use shallow pool or classic pool instead of deep pool, it'll be a lot cheaper. Or you could even make the bay smaller and use less pool. Well, I hope you found this tutorial useful. See ya!